When I was in one of the worst periods of my life, of my own life, that lasted around 8 months, one of the first steps I took to get better was to read a book, to read my first book ever. And it was hard to get motivated, to be honest, because I didn't find passion in anything at that point in my life. I had to get out the little smidget of self-discipline that was left in me to read my first book. And that book was Atomic Habits. And I was lucky that I took upon this book for my first read because, well, since then I have formed a habit of reading. Books have the capability of opening your mind in ways you've never thought of, and opening yourself to the world henceforth. It's something I never knew that I would really enjoy because I never saw myself as a reader in the past. I disliked reading in school, and every time they forced reading on me, I read it halfway and just checked the summary online to be able to prepare for the exam. My mindset has changed a lot since then, mostly because of the influence of these books on my own life. They completely changed my perspective on how to live it. And now I'm going to talk about the 3 books that affected my life the most in a positive way. This is the 3 books that changed my life. Alright, let's start. So, first book, Lost Connections by Johann Hari. The subtitle for this is Why You're Depressed and How to Find Hope. And it sounds kind of corny as a subtitle, in my opinion, but it's a really good book that goes deep into depression. I've always been a very anxious person, and when I was at my worst of anxiety, I felt frozen in place and unable to act as I wanted to. I was stuck in time. I felt completely disconnected from reality. I thought that if I just waited, it would eventually come to pass, but this book taught me otherwise. And it taught me that I had to take responsibility for my own life instead of waiting for it to fix itself. I cannot really say if I ever had real depression because I've never been diagnosed, but my symptoms were similar enough that this book was enormous help to me. In modern society, we tend to point the finger at chemical imbalances in our brain as the cause of depression, like it's a disease instead of a problem we created ourselves. And there is some truth in there, since they can be a cause. It can be somewhat genetically inherited, but for the most part, for most people, it is not. And unfortunately, lots of people can be stuck using antidepressants for the rest of their life and just going on the way they lived before depression. That's probably what caused their depression in the first place. In truth, depression is a message sent by our bodies to warn us of the way we are living life in the present. And our bodies want us to change the way we live life because it's not good for us. And it's often due to the social and environmental choices that we choose to live in. And this book taught me to reconnect with the things that are most important to me as a human being, about reconnecting with the people important to me and what I want to contribute to this world, instead of focusing on my shortcomings and blaming the world for who I was as a person, reconnecting with reality instead of trying to escape. Because of this book's insight on depression as a whole, it made me a new person and realized that I could change how I'm living right now instead of trying to let it pass as a sort of disease instead. Because there was a reason why I was feeling that way, I just didn't want to accept it. Okay, so second book on my list is Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. This book is one of the most, if not the most, popular philosophical text on Stoicism, on the philosophy of Stoicism. And this way of living Stoicism is where I have derived a lot of ideas for my own life philosophy. This book holds an enormous amount of life lessons for such a small word count, and as such is something that I plan on rereading throughout my whole entire life, because it is oftentimes better to be reminded than to be informed. The biggest takeaway from this book for me was that our minds hold enormous power and that we are in full control of it. Everything we experience comes from our mind's opinion on it. And I learned that everything is a choice, since we have a choice on what we think about things and events that happen around us, even if we are not in control of the events that happen to us. Everything is a choice. We can choose to be kind to others, to be generous, to be virtuous. We can choose to be happy. and this was extremely liberating for me to hear. It also taught me a lesson about mortality and the shortness of life and the finitude of it all. It can pass us by in a short moment and thus cannot be spent on things we don't care about. This taught me to be more present and love life as it is. To be grateful for how much I already have instead of always striving to have something better. To love life for its own sake and not derive any more meaning to it than simply being alive and enjoying the story I'm living through. And Stoicism has a lot of great ideas that we can apply to our modern life, and there's so much more I can talk about this philosophy, but for now I'll cut it short and we'll pass on to the other book. Last book, and this may be a sort of controversial choice, but it's The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. Albert Camus, if you want to say it in French. I have always struggled with finding meaning and purpose in my own life, and lost a lot of sleep over the years over those questions. I've searched for the universe to be orderly and reasonable, but all I found was chaos, and it didn't make any sense. The universe doesn't make sense at all. It was all out of my control, and I wanted to control it. And any conclusion that I made about those questions about life was a leap of faith, something I couldn't truly prove the existence of. As such, there was constant anxiety in me about trying to find meaning in living. It was like a nagging issue in the back of my head that I lived through for the past years of my life. And this book made me realize that there is another route to all those questions. And it pursues the possibility of living a full life in a world lacking meaning and purpose. And it's not about escaping the absurdity of life, as Albert Camus calls it, but confronting it and living fully despite that. This is the mentality that has allowed me to live life to the fullest. The mentality of absurdism. The philosophy of absurdism. To me, this meant pursuing life for the sake of living it fully as an adventure. That there is no need to go further and search for meaning and purpose to life, because we are already living it. The only thing that I can and will do is pursue what I enjoy and can squeeze out of life. And to me, this meant deep experiences and relationships. There will never be a time where we are completely fulfilled and happy, and that's fine because it's all part of the experience of living life. This book to me opened up so many ways of thinking that I've never thought of before about the philosophy of existentialism or absurdism, and I'm still exploring it today. And of course, I plan on rereading this book throughout my whole life too. There's a common theme that we can see throughout all these books, and it is to face reality as it is and accept it. It's to accept the reality of our situation in its entirety, the good and the bad, and to love it all for what they are, what it is. To enjoy every experience I encounter in life, whether it be something mundane, like staring at the sky, something really annoying, like being stuck in traffic, or something as exciting as a rock concert. Because everything I can experience in life is better than experiencing nothing at all. And honestly, I love every second of it, or at least I try to. To be honest, reading is really one of the best habits to start building if you want to change your own life. I promise you won't regret it. And it can be anything from a children's book to a college textbook. Just start reading, because with every page you flip over, you open your mind a tiny bit more, and correspondingly, live life more vividly than you ever thought you could. Thanks for watching.